Hey guys, so this video is about ground cover. I'm going to show you how I apply the ground cover on my layout. So after I lay on my track and I get everything wired up and make sure my trains are running fine, and then I airbrush my track with flat earth. Then the next step is to add the ground cover to cover up the bare wood on my benchwork. So the first ground cover that I apply is the earth or soil, dirt, whatever you want to call it. And this is what it looks like on my railroad. And then after I apply the earth, I then apply ballast onto my track. Then next step after that is applying the static grass. So this is the preliminary application of my static grass. The nice thing about static grass is that you can come in later and add more detail. So eventually I want to put some taller grass along the shed over here. I want to add some dead grass and yellow grass along the tracks, and even some more grass uh, coming right across the tracks this way. I've already added some grass on the tracks, but I want to see if I can add some more to give it some a better effect. So anyway, I'm going to show you guys exactly how I do that step by step. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I apply my first layer of ground cover, which will be the soil. So the product I use to simulate soil is non-sanded grout. It's the same type of grout that you use to fill in the cracks on ceramic tile. I got this grout at Home Depot. They sell Polyblend, and the colors that I use is Haystack and Light Smoke. I use the Haystack for the roads and the Light Smoke for the grassy areas. It doesn't really matter because most of the grout's going to be covered with grass anyway, but I'll show you what the colors look like. So this is the Haystack, the light brown color, and then this is the Light Smoke. I do mix it up sometimes. I like over here I use some uh, Light Smoke, and then I used the Haystack everywhere else. And over here I blended some Haystack with the Light Smoke. So I try to mix it up. I don't always use the same colors everywhere. This is mostly Haystack over here. So as soon as I open up a bag of grout, I dump the remaining grout in these 1 gallon bags to keep them fresh and free of any moisture. I've had this grout for well over 2 years, maybe even 3 years, and it's all staying really good in these bags. But this grout is a very powdery consistency. It's very fine. So you really want to keep it sealed up and keep moisture out. The next step, of course, is putting painter's tape over the tracks, because this is a very messy process when you spray the glue on the grout. So you want to protect your track so that you don't have to go and clean it all over again. I should also mention that when you put your tape down over the track, uh, try not to stick it onto the tires itself, because when you pull it up, you might pull up some of the paint that you have on your ties. So what I do is I try to just push the tape down, rub the tape on the rails itself to hold it in place. So the first thing I do before I put down any grout is I seal the wood with this water-based polyurethane. I just apply it with a brush. I already did this before, and I make sure that it dries overnight. It's important to do this because if you don't seal the wood will act as a sponge and it'll just suck all the glue that you spray on. So it'll look great initially when you first put it down, and then the next day it'll look great. But then when you go to vacuum up the loose any loose grout that's on the surface, is going to suck up big clumps of grout that didn't adhere to the wood, and that's very upsetting. So I just apply this the sealer all over the wood. I don't go crazy. I just apply one coat, but you can apply more than one coat if you want. So that's the very first step. Okay, so now for the fun part of putting down the grout or the soil. So I apply the grout with these little salt dispensers, and I find it works very well. Open them up. I scoop up grout. As you can see, it's really very powdery. Brush off the excess. And do the same thing with the other color. Try not to fill it all the way to the top, because it seems to help the flow if it's not completely full. Okay. Now I'm ready to apply my soil. And now I'm going to apply the darker grout first. And all I do is I just sprinkle it on. I just sprinkle it on until I can't see the bare wood anymore. I try to hold it sideways at an angle like this, which seems to help get it to flow out better. Gotta cover up those nail holes. I should have spackled those with some spackle, but I didn't because I'm the lazy model railroader. As you can see, it goes pretty fast. You can do large areas very quickly, which is nice. And then later on, you can go in and add more details. If you're not happy with the results, you can always add different colors. You can lighten it, darken it, mix some of the lighter haystack with the darker color. which is what I'm going to do now, just to show you how it comes out. And you can see just this one container covers quite a bit. You don't have to put it down that thick, just enough to cover the wood so that you don't see it anymore. I'm not going to do this whole area because eventually I'm going to put houses here. There's going to be like a cul-de-sac with some maybe 3 houses. So I'm going to apply the light haystack also. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I think you get the idea. You can see how the different colors come out. So now, this is an important step. You can get 2 different effects with this method. You can leave the grout on there just as it is, but I like to get a more compacted soil look. So what I do is you can either use wax paper or parchment paper. I like to use wax paper because it's a little more clearer. You can see a little bit better through it. And I just lay the wax paper down and I compress it with my hand. And this gives a more compacted soil look. Makes the soil look like it's like it's been compacted by rain and snow and all that stuff. So I'm going to do a little bit more over here, compact it, and then I'm going to leave the rest the way it is so that you can see how it looks after I apply the glue, the different effects. So the next step is really a 2-step process. The glue that I use is Mod Podge. I use the matte Mod Podge, and I use a mixture of 40% Mod Podge to 60% water. So I have this already mixed up. And I pour it into my spray bottle. Okay. But before I put down the Mod Podge, the grout needs to be wet down with 10% IPA. So this is just 10% of my 91% isopropyl alcohol and 90% water. Make sure it's all mixed up there. And then I just spray the whole thing down, give it a real good soaking. So this will reduce the surface tension of the Mod Podge, of the grout. If you don't do this, the glue is just going to roll right off of this grout because it's such a fine powder. So I just really soak it down wet it down with this wet water solution, as they call it. That should be enough. I find that you can never apply too much wet water. And now I spray my Mod Podge on it with the 40% Mod Podge and 60% water. As you can see, this is a very messy process. That's why you really have to cover everything up, that you don't want to get glue on it. And as you can see, there are some spots that got a little more Mod Podge than other spots. And that's okay. I find that you can't really worry too much about all this stuff. This will eventually dry. When it dries, it's going to dry completely flat, and you're not even going to notice anything. You could go in there with a paper towel and try to blot some of that stuff up, but I find all that does is it just disturbs the grout. So the important thing is you got to just leave this alone and let it dry. So like if I was to add some more Mod Podge on there, more grout, I would have to wet it again and then add more of the glue. But I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is now, so you guys can see what it looks like. But the important thing is you got to just let this sit and dry completely. Don't try to rush it. Don't try to do anything with it. Just let it stay. It usually takes a long time. I usually let it just sit for overnight, and the next day I'll go over with the vacuum to vacuum up any loose grout, and then it'll be ready for grass. Okay, so this is dried overnight, and it's dried up really nicely. You'll see that a lot of the puddles of glue that I had some puddles back here and some puddles here. They're all gone now. It all dried up. So the next step is to go over it with the vacuum and pick up any loose material that's on here. But when I play back my videos, I noticed that I was so busy videotaping that I kind of did a sloppy job on this whole thing. And so I might not have put enough glue over here. I also noticed that when I put the lighter color, the haystack color of grout down, I didn't do a very good job. There's some blotchy spots here, but we'll see how it comes up. When I vacuum it, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I might suck up some big blobs of grout, but we'll see. Let's see how it goes. All right, that went pretty good. So now, no big blobs of grout came up. So now I can just lift up my tape, and I'm going to have to vacuum it again, because as I take this tape up, it's going to make the grout that's on the tape fall off. But I wanted to keep the tape on in case I had to redo the grout, but I didn't have to do that. So let me vacuum it again on the track. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, so I took my cardboard off. When I took the cardboard off, it made some of this ballast break off, but that's okay because that could be all covered up with grass and bushes and all that stuff. Because I'm eventually going to have some kind of backdrop here. Not really sure what I'm going to do there. The next step is the ballast. So I got this ballast applicator. I kind of had to modify it. I added some more painter's tape to the back here, built it up with a few layers because I found that it was just too high and it was making too high of a level of ballast. So I just added more tape here and scored it with a knife. So all I need to do now is pour some ballast in here. So the one that I use is Woodland Scenics. I use the fine ballast, the gray blend. That's what I prefer to use, but you can use whatever you want. So now I already have some ballast here. This is my kind of my experimental section where I try different painting techniques and stuff like that. So put this on my track. Oh, actually, it should go this way. Because as the ballast comes down, I want this to run over the ballast and smooth it out. So I'm going to go this way. So here we go. And that's it. That's the basic layer of ballast. And when I say basic is that I'm going to go over it with a brush and brush off some of that excess and spread it out a little bit more. So I got my brush right here. It's a very light, smooth, a very fluffy brush. I don't know how much of this you're getting. Let me see if I can move the camera. Tapping it with the brush helps get some of the ballast off of the ties. Just patting down any ridges of ballast that I created with the brush. Again, I'll tap it down with the handle. And we zoom in, and you can see how nice gets the ballast off of the ties. So I'm happy with that. That's looking very good. So the next step now is to glue it all down. Okay, so to glue down the ballast, I use the same method that I used to glue the grout. So first thing I do is I wet it down with this 10% IPA, 90% water. Okay, and then I use the same Mod Podge, 40-60. 40% Mod Podge, 60% water, which I already have mixed up. Now, the only thing is, this is a little more tricky because I don't want to just spray the glue onto the tracks because that's going to get my rails all messed up and gunky. So I like to apply it with a dropper. But the problem is, it's hard to tell where the glue has been applied and where it hasn't been. So you got to kind of be methodical and just work in sections so that you make sure that you cover everything. You see how it just, because of the wet water, the alcohol with the water mixture, it really just reduces the surface tension so that the glue just like soaks right in there. I have found, especially when I do a large area, that when everything dries and I go over it with a vacuum, there are some spots that I didn't get glue on and the ballast comes up. But it's not too much of a big deal. I just go over them again, just add some more ballast. You see there's some glue on the ties, but you don't have to worry about that. I mean, you can go over with a paper towel, but then you're probably going to disturb the ballast. So I just leave it and just let it dry, and that stuff, that glue on the tires will just disappear. So when it dries overnight, I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. Just before I go, I realized another step I missed is, you can see there's the alcohol spray on the rails. So I'm just going to lightly go over the rails with a paper towel. Just wipe off that excess water and alcohol. There's no glue on there. It's just that alcohol that's on there. And that's it. And I just leave it and let it dry overnight. Okay, so the glue on the ballast has dried overnight, so now it's time to vacuum it up and see if I missed any spots with the glue. Okay, so not too bad. I mean, there are some spots that I missed. Right over here, you can see the ballast came right up, so I didn't put enough glue down over there. But, you know, I wasn't really paying as much attention to what I was doing because I was videotaping everything. So that's an easy enough thing to fix, because I can just put more ballast down, spray it down with some more wet water and glue, and I'm good to go. But all in all, I'd say it came out pretty good. So I'm going to show you also what the ballast, but the grout looks like. If you remember, there were some spots that I pushed the ballast down with the wax paper to give it more of a compressed look. And then there's other spots where I just left it raw, fluffy. I didn't push it down with the wax paper at all. So you can see the difference in the texture. This has a rougher look to it. And then back here, and also over here, it's more smoother. Anyway, that is the end of part 1. Part 2, I will show you how I put down the static grass.